Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call starting to my right, audibly, please.
James Cornell, Presiding Ward,
Joseph Blair, Mark Eagle, Eric Arnold.
Barker.
All here. There's not here. Minutes from June 20, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 20th, 2022.
second.
First and a second. Assuming no questions, so please vote to my right, beginning on my right, audibly.
James Cornell, aye. Presiding Ward, aye.
Joseph Blair, aye.
Mark Eagle, aye.
Eric Arnold, aye.
Barker. Aye.
Reports and recommendations.
No reports and recommendations tonight. We have one item of old business that we'll move on to, which is docket DEB-357-2022, Sutton Farms Self-Storage Development Plan. The petitioner is requesting development plan approval for self-storage units. The subject property is located approximately third mile south of State Road 135 and Smoky Road Row. Property is zoned C3. Petitioner is Meta Storage LLC. The owner is Sutton Farms LLC. Before we get into the case itself, the petitioner submitted a written request to continue this case to the August 15th Planning Commission meeting. And this is a request that the Planning Commission, per your rules, it's at your discretion to grant or deny. So your options would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ellen, would be to grant the continuance request, and that would, in that, specify any notification requirements, or your other option is to not accept the continuance request and move forward with the public hearing tonight.
And from a procedural standpoint, we need to vote on the continuance?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, I can make a motion to not accept the continuance and move on to the public meeting.
Second.
That is a first and a second to deny the request for continuance. Does anyone on the commission have any questions about the motion? So please vote starting to my right, audibly.
James Cornell, aye. Presiding Ward, aye.
Joseph Blair, aye.
Mark Eagle, aye.
Eric Arnold, aye.
Barker. Aye.
Okay, that's 6-0 to deny the request to continue. So we'll move forward, right?
So we will move on to the case introduction then.
Okay.
As we stated, this is a proposal for self-storage units just south of the State Road 135 and Smoky Road Road intersection. This was discussed briefly last month before the commission granted their continuance request. North is up on your screen. The site plan is in your packets and on the screen for your reference. Petitioner is proposing a little over 93,000 square feet of storage space, and proposing 22 parking spaces, and has some landscape buffering that is proposed, but is also mostly proposed to use the existing tree lines there to the west and south as part of their required buffering for the zoning ordinance and the arterial corridor overlay. There would be proposed one entrance onto the site itself from State Road 135. Staff identified some deficiencies and additional information that we requested before last month's meeting. We have not received that information. We have had some discussions with the petitioner, but we have not gotten that information. Staff was also concerned with the proposed entrance, as that could potentially pose a safety hazard long-term, thinking about the development of the undeveloped area to the north. And we requested additional information or consideration from the petitioner and have not gotten a formal response in regards to doing any kind of shared entrance or anything for potential future commercial to the north of this property. With the zoning ordinance, there are criteria for level B site plan approvals, which include traffic circulation, stormwater, landscaping, utilities, and other items. Staff is recommending that with these criteria in mind, the Plan Commission deny the development plan for 16.7A, B, C 1, 2, and 4 respectively, which the specific deficient items are outstanding drainage issues, lack of information to verify compliance with the ordinance parking requirements. They did not provide any unit count, which is what the information that the ordinance requires. Lack of information to verify existing vegetation that satisfies the buffering requirements. We requested this information and haven't gotten a response back yet. And shared State Road 135 access from with future commercial development to the north for public health, safety, and general welfare. Petitioner is here tonight to give a presentation and answer any questions. This is a public hearing.
Just so everybody knows how we can proceed or how we proceed from this point forward, here just very shortly, I'm going to ask everyone who plans to speak regarding this item during the during the public meeting to stand and raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. The first step after that is the petitioner will come up and give their presentation regarding this development. And then after that happens, the commission will have an opportunity to ask some questions directly from us to the petitioner. And then I'll open the public hearing, and then we'll have everyone have an opportunity to speak who would like to speak. I would encourage all of you that try not to be repetitive if at all possible. Just come to the podium and state your name and your address. And we'll be taking notes. I'll be taking notes. And then when everybody's done speaking, then we'll give the petitioner an opportunity to come up and address all these questions and issues. And then after that, well, I'm sorry, I close the public hearing after everybody's done. And then the petitioner will come up and answer those questions. And then we'll have an opportunity to talk to the petitioner and ask any more questions. And then at some point in time, there'll be a motion and a vote. So hopefully all that makes sense. And with that, could everybody please stand who plans on commenting on this particular item and raise your right hand, and I will swear you in, everyone, including the petitioner. So, okay, do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth? Thank you. Okay, with that, I invite the petitioner to come up and give your presentation.
Good evening. John Jers, I represent Meta Storage LLC, the petitioner for the Sun Farm self-storage development. Understanding all that has been shared by the staff, I wanted to share some information that my team has been working diligently to address behind the scenes all of the comments that have been made to us by the staff. We thoughtfully considered all of those. And due to a couple of timing issues throughout the process on our end, we have not delivered back a full set of comments. And our goal and desire was to deliver a complete set of comments as opposed to piecemeal them in hopes of streamlining the process. So that has been in the mode that we have been operating under. As we were approaching the June 20th meeting, we were preparing and addressing the comments made on the June 3rd TAC review to us. and we were mistakenly under the impression that we could complete the updated development plan application after having presented. That was our mistake, and Chelsea pointed out to us on the 16th before the meeting that they hadn't received any comments and clarified for us that we did in fact need to have all of those updated before we could present. So we convened among ourselves and in discussion with the staff determined that we didn't have time to fully prepare those comments and get them to staff to review prior to making a recommendation to the Planning Commission. That's what instigated our first request for continuation. After you graciously granted the continuation request, we received some additional comments, which we have continued to work on, including items that were addressed tonight, like hiring an arborist to determine the health of the stand of trees and foliage that stands on the property, which is proposed as part of the buffer for the zoning ordinance to verify that it would or would not comply. There's one further item that is outstanding, which we have not had time to properly address. The request was made to us to revisit access on July 1st before the 4th of July weekend. Up until that time, we've been proposing the single dedicated entry point that's on the plan for the project and leaving the northern development access to be addressed at the time that that property was developed and brought before the staff and to you. Upon reviewing that request and considering it, looking at the potential impacts, the process of properly engaging with the staff and the community to find a solution that works for all, we determined that we couldn't possibly get that completed to have the full development package presented to the staff in time to review prior to providing a recommendation to you. So that was the reason for the request for continuation tonight. That said, I'm happy to address the status of each of those items as pointed out that lie outstanding and answer any questions that you have in regard to such.
Members of the commission have any questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you. We'll move straight to the public hearing.
Am I allowed to address the items and the status of which are
Yes, you still have time if you
Okay.
still have more.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was skipping to a page of my notes.
That's okay.
Regarding the outstanding drainage issues, there were requests made for verification of calculations for the drainage system that services the Somerset property, Somerset development that is to the west of our project. That was developed by Allen Commercial, I think about 20 years ago. We're under contract to purchase the property from Allen Commercial, and they were able to access original calculations. They kind of went back and reviewed them, compared notes with our civil engineer. We have those calculations ready to deliver. But again, as I indicated, we wanted to do it in its entirety so that there was a full package to deliver to staff. We have subsequently updated the design of the self-storage facility. Let me back up. At the time when staff had requested that and verified that we needed to have a certain parking ratio, I believe it's 1 space per 20 units plus 1 space per 300 square feet of office space for the project, we didn't have a finalized unit mix. A third party determines the unit mix. It's out of our control, and I think as we've all encountered, timelines stretch everywhere we look these days. We have subsequently determined the final unit mix. We'll have 631 units in the design, and that will translate into 34.55 required spaces for the development. We have a plan that shows 35 spaces, which again, we were waiting to deliver as the complete development plan update package for staff's review. As it relates to the buffering, all the landscaping will be according to ordinance. The request by staff, which I think was wise, was to determine if the existing stand of trees and foliage could qualify. Was it healthy enough? Were there enough trees of enough species that could qualify for the ordinance? We identified an arborist, we hired them, they did the survey. We have the results. that our civil engineer is prepared to review those results against ordinance to determine if, in fact, it will serve the purpose. If it won't, then we'll comply with the ordinance in whatever way is best. We just need to finalize that, deliver it back to staff, and get their comment and feedback so that we can finalize that item. As it relates to the shared access point on 135, what that would require is a rework of buildings. So we're open to the discussion. We want a solution that works for everybody. But that set forth kind of a cascade of items that take time in the calendar. And so one is corroborating with the staff and the community. One is collaborating with the northern property and the future development of that property, which today there's no plan to be presented. Another is that changing access is going to require changing buildings. Changing buildings will require a new unit mix request, which comes from a third party. So that means I have to request an updated unit mix. When I get the final unit mix, then I can calculate parking required per the ratio and then finish an updated drawing of the property. Each of those items could take 1 to 2 weeks in and of themselves. I'm hopeful that we could get them done in 1 week each and have that updated relatively quickly if that were the solution that worked for all versus a single access point here and a single access point to the property to the north. So that item is contemplated. I know who to talk to. We obviously need to engage with staff first and have discussions about the best way forward. That item, I could not deliver a plan next week with a resolution on it. Every other item, I believe that we have everything we need to finalize the plan in accordance with all staff comments.
Does anybody from the commission have any questions about those 4 key items that staff added in our report and the petitioner just commented on?
Is the entrance exactly across from the Kroger entrance? Is that where it is?
Good question. I can't answer that at the moment.
I don't believe.
It's
proposed, I
not.
think it's
It's
down
not.
closer to the south.
It's
Yeah,
south.
it's gonna be closer to right across from like auto zone if I had to,
Gotcha.
or whatever the auto.
Yeah.
Actually, see the trucks down there.
Yeah.
So here's
Okay.
here's the entrance.
Yeah, that's actually someone else's property.
There you go. Right, absolutely. It's down by the public land.
So Somerset Farms detention was designed to incorporate how much of this property to the east that we're looking at here? Drainage and detention.
The drainage and
facility.
detention for the residential community.
I mean, the way it's laid out now, you have no on-site detention, so I'm assuming it's on-site in Somerset.
So the retention pond will be designed to,
Property in the north.
it will be developed on the property to the north.
Okay.
As part of our agreement, we will develop that retention pond, and it will be designed to handle the max amount of impervious surface that could be developed according to code for this property and the property to the north. Just trying to make sure that we've covered all bases. If less impervious surface, if the use were the lower impervious surface, that would still be handled properly. And the community is handled to design the overflow because there is a connection in the far northwest of the northern property that connects back into Somerset that the retention pond will overflow into. And those calculations have been verified that they're in tolerance.
That's one question I have.
Is that part of this parcel? I know you mentioned that you guys are working on Allen, the Allen property. Now, is that playing into this retention pond? Is it under contract or is that something still under negotiation?
The parcel that you see on the screen here is under contract. We have an agreement in place to develop the 2-acre pond on Allen's property to the north. And we have a draft, easements, detention easements that is under review between the parties so that there will be an easement for access to the detention for this property in perpetuity, and then there will also be appropriate language just to dictate maintenance going forward.
And that's still under agreement, it's still in the process.
It is,
So
yes.
it could affect some, okay.
They're amenable to it, we just haven't finalized the actual agreement.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
So do I say it and then
Yes.
come back and address the
Thank you.
questions?
Yep. I'd like to open the public hearing for docket DEV 000-357-2022 Sutton Farms self-storage development. Anybody that would like to comment on this development, this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address. And we'll go from there.
Hi, my name is Tina Fultz. I reside at 3199 Tecumseh Way in Bargersville in Somerset neighborhood. I had planned on having something written, but when I was posted onto our neighborhood Facebook page today, encouraging everyone to show up, found out that there was a continuance. And so I feel that most of the people that would have been here are the request for continuance. Most of the people that would have been here and were here at the last meeting in which the continuance was requested and granted, believed that it would be continued. So I don't think, we had over probably 60 people here at the last meeting, because most of those people now believe that it's not being discussed tonight. They're not here. So I personally take significant concern with that, as this impacts our property values, it impacts the view of Bargersville, it impacts just the fluency of traffic down 135. I have been a resident of Bargersville since 2005. My family first moved into Harvest Grove, which, as you know, has no stoplight or intersection. It's just open access onto 135. In 2016, my husband and I moved into Somerset. Part of our reasoning for building on the reserve side, because over the years, the traffic flow through 135 continued to increase, and turning left out of Harvest Grove became a nightmare. And so when we built in Somerset, we specifically chose the reserve over the manor, specifically for the reason of Smoky Row access point and ease of access. We have coming up teenage drivers, didn't want them to have to turn left onto 135 without a lift. So we chose reserve so that we wouldn't have that issue. So one of my big concerns with this is I personally hate driving north on 135. You go into Greenwood and it is a traffic jam. There is light after light, and then there is also input onto 135 after input onto 135. I am not from Indiana, I'm from Minnesota. So it has taken me a while to kind of embrace the infrastructure around here. I find it very frustrating, and I am frustrated that I feel that the community is not planning for growth. Bargersville has grown tremendously. When I first moved to Bargersville, there was Somerset, Harvest Grove, and then really not a whole lot until you got further down into Bargersville, and then you had the old Town Bargersville homes. None of these new subdivisions. With the exponential growth, it obviously increases traffic going to 135. With 135 being pretty much the only thoroughfare down south, north-south into Bargersville, and then continually adding these single access points, or even if it's not a single access point, shared access points. Between my husband and I did a math and kind of started looking at how many potential access points we're talking about just on the side of Bargersville between Smoky Row and Whiteland Road. And you're talking about, even if the shared access points, you're talking about 6 to 7 just from our side of 135 access points between Smoky Row and Whiteland Road. how is that creating a safe travel experience down 135? It is going to be congested way beyond what 135 Northwest is, or it'll be just the same, which does not present a very nice picture of inviting, welcoming Bargersville easy to get to. It presents your first drive into Bargersville is met with congestion. So that has been a pretty significant point of concern for me. Another point of concern that I have is we weren't notified because we didn't fit the rule of so many yards. Yet our home will be significantly impacted. We live on the cul-de-sac that comes away. Our backyard will face the storage units and the chain link fence. We can't even have chain link fences in our own neighborhood because of property value concerns. Yet that is what our view would be, along with everyone else on Cherokee Circle, which will back right up to the new retention pond, I believe. Their view will be chain link fences and storage units. We have worked hard and saved long to be able to afford our home. We always knew that there would be buildings built there, but to have it be a storage unit is devastating. It is really, it's not a very glamorous view into what I thought Bargersville was going to be. Jotted down some notes because I wasn't prepared to have to speak to you. Another thing that's disappointing to me is coming down Bargersville, there's not a whole lot of trees, right? It's mostly farmland on each side, and continually will become more buildings and more housing developments. To me, it's also really disappointing that one of the very beautiful groves of trees that exists as a nice welcome into the community is going to be torn down and replaced with storage units. There's a significant amount of wildlife that exists in that grove of trees. So it's sad to see that that'll be dismantled for storage units. I think that pretty much concludes everything that I wanted to say. But again, I want to echo that I'm extremely disappointed that the impression of a continuance, and I don't come to town halls, and that's my own naivety, and maybe I should be more aware of how all of this works. I've learned a lot now tonight. But I'm extremely disappointed that the people that showed up last time didn't get an opportunity to speak. They're under the impression that it's continuing until next month. And now they're yet again not given a chance to speak. So I think that that's also something that needs to be considered.
Thank you. So everybody knows procedures and our process rules for their commission. We have 15 minutes for the petitioner to talk, 15 minutes for the public session. So I would ask you to just make sure it's condensed. Please don't. If traffic's already been discussed, we definitely have traffic down. Obviously, the staff identified traffic as well. So just to give everybody an opportunity to speak, we started at 6:50 and we're already 10 minutes into the 15. Obviously, we're not going to stop at 15, but I just ask everybody to please be concise and not repetitive. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Ryan.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you again.
You too.
So I live at 3373 Cheyenne Court in Somerset. I actually worked for Greg Allen. I've been in commercial development for over 20 years. I worked for Greg Allen. When he bought this, I bought my house from him. I also worked for Pat Fenton, who I sold the 14 acres to the north on 135 in 2006. Pat is a resident from Michigan. He bought it as an investment property because I told him all about how great Bargersville was and it was going to grow. He's maintained the property now, and now he has significant interest in developing it because of what's happened with the Kroger, what's happened. I think I've lived in Bargersville my whole life since I was a kid. I think we have a great opportunity as a town to present this as a gateway to Bargersville. Pat and he hasn't brought everything in yet. He's going to be bringing some stuff into planning commission because he's just got interest from grocery store, upscale health food grocery store, gas stations, pharmacy, community health, a variety of great things. I think he needs to bring in as a plan of development that's going to happen in the area. Part of my concern is when I sold Pat the property back in 2006, when we talked to NDOT, the reason for the curb cut was it had to be 500 feet south of the stoplight. And that was going to be the only curb cut into the property, which was right in the middle between Greg Allen and his property. And that was going to be one access point. And the reasoning for that was because of all the issues that we have on 135. I have a 16-year-old daughter now who's starting to drive. And we've had terrifying moments going up north of Smith Valley Road on what's right and wrong between that. So, you know, having a curb cut every 10 feet, I would hope that we wouldn't do that. We have an opportunity as a town, I think, to come together and say, okay, this was going to be the gateway to Bargersville. There's issues with sewer concern and how that's going to come across. Actually, my backyard backs up to the railroad tracks, and the sewer cuts right between my neighbor and I's property, which goes across. There's a concern for lighting, making sure that I know that the property is zoned commercial, it's zoned for self-storage. There's nothing that we can do about that at this point. But coming up with lighting issues using LED, low-level lighting, coming up with landscaping, making sure there's at least a 10-foot berm with trees on top of that, so that the homeowners, like Tina said, did a very good job. We all worked really hard for our property values, and after, like, I was the first house built there in 2006 at the height of the market. It took me 10 years to get back what I had invested into the property because of that, and then Greg had sold out to a production home builder. That hurt as well, and everybody's finally recovering from that. And then to have another hit, to have self-storage built, which is kind of an eyesore. So that's a concern as well. I also believe that 135 has an overlay zone in this area. So I think it is, I'm not positive, Mark, maybe you know, it's 50 feet back from 135, but everything has to be
I'll
brick.
defer to Joe. I don't know the setback off the top of my head, but it does.
So we want, if it is a self-storage unit, and you can't stop that, we can consider the landscape berm that backs up the roads. We could do something with that. We could do LED lighting with low level lighting. The entrance of it has to be all brick up in the front to consider the 135 overlay zone. And then again, the curb cuts, because right now I don't believe that this is an authorized curb cut for NDOT. If it is something, you know, maybe they would do a roundabout. I don't know what they're going to do to kind of continue the traffic so that we don't continue what Greenwood has done, where it's like you're putting your life in your own hands, driving that Milton Cleaners is coming out, CVS is coming, cars are going everywhere. So to try to reduce the traffic issues, and then also the sewer and the capacity. I mean, I think everybody in Somerset knows we probably have the most expensive water sewer bills out of anybody in Greenwood. Like, probably 4 times as much as Greenwood sewer bills. My water bill last month was $340. I do water my lawn, but again, $340 for water sewer is a lot of money, and how that's going to impact that cost as well. Traffic lighting, I think I kind of went over everything. So while a self-storage unit is needed, I think White River Township needs more storage. I don't know that this is the place, but if you can stop it, you might as well make sure that it's nice brick, it's not an eyesore, that there's not traffic hazards, and that, you know, detention, maybe we look at underground detention, so you don't have too many detention ponds throughout the whole place, the whole area there. And that's kind of, in fact, it's kind of hard who maintains it, how often it's maintained, and then after 5 years, is it always going to be maintained, those kind of issues as well. So just trying to make sure that all those things are taken into consideration. Thank you.
My name is Laura Sproul. I live at 3160 Amber Way. My property abuts directly to this proposed property. We recently moved into the community from Greenwood. We purchased our home in September of last year. And to have this development proposed here is just simply devastating. We've worked really hard to be able to afford this home in this market, and to be faced with the prospect of living next to this thing for 20 years is just completely devastating. You have to look at our backyard, which right now, we don't have a fence. Our privacy fences are not allowed in our community. And right now we look at this beautiful forested area. And that was one of the things that made me fall in love with this home. Also, our neighbors next door to us, they're good friends of ours. We've been friends for 10 years. And there is no landscape blocking this property behind their home. And now they're thinking of selling their home and moving out of the community because of this development. Now, I'm devastated for that. We are so excited to live next to our friends and have our children be friends together. And now to potentially lose that, it's just really upsetting. So please, 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 we oppose. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
How y'all doing?
Good, thank you.
My name is Will Campbell. I live at 3112 Amber Way. I have a direct line of sight to what will be this property, these developments. You can see Kroger and gas station and the car wash all through our yard. I don't know if we're past the point of whether we can, I do oppose this. I'm not sure if we can stop this or not, but again, it's been I kind of counted in August, just arrived here a few minutes ago. Thought there might be continuous based on the package I received from the mail. I know y'all just already
Just a
know.
quick question. Who was that package from?
From Meta.
Okay.
They said they were gonna ask for continuance, and I've got the letterhead on it saying, we are not ready for this meeting. We're gonna ask us to be ready for August. It
Okay.
specifically mentioned August in their letter. In fact, I have it here.
That's okay, I believe you.
All right.
They included it as a supplement to our regular public notice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I may be a little out of date. I was gonna do my homework before the August meeting, but the drawings I saw before the last meeting, 135 is an arterial corridor. I'm sure you all know that already from the ordinances. And as even 130, there are specific ordinances that are requested, not just for being in Bargersville, but because you are on 135. A lot of the drawings I saw before the June meeting did not meet a lot of those ordinances. The type of fencing they're choosing, the type of building material they're choosing. Some of the things I know that's not a layout meeting, but my concern is these ordinances are not arduous. They're not complicated. These are very easy to read ordinances that are clearly not being followed. If they're not going to follow them at this point in time, I really don't have a lot of faith that they're going to do what they were supposed to do anyway. But my big concern is what they're doing to ordinances. They're not following them. They're not these arterial road ordinances. They're on purpose. They're not complicated to understand. I don't see, we talked about it in the parking lot after the last meeting. I don't know why they're not looking at these things, asking themselves, you know what? Instead of chain link fence, which is, it's, you know, the architectural fences we're talking about. Instead of the general steel, galvanum steel building that they want to put up. You know, the ordinance clearly has conversation about architectural stone or masonry or concrete of some kind. I know along 135, even northwest and Greenwood area, there are quite a few storage units. Most of them are blocked off the main drag. They're not on 135. One has access to 135, but most of them are not. They're blocked off. They are kind of an eyesore. I like storage units. I've used them in the past. I'm not against the idea of storage units being in our community. But where it's going on our major into our neighbor, our original city, you got 135, you got 31, you got what will become the new interstate access here. And so for a major entrance to say, we're not going to put this, off the beaten path. We're going to put it right front center of our neighborhood. I know storage centers long-term don't have a great history for upkeep and property aesthetics. And this is the entrance, a major entrance to our community. And that's the lack of the ordinances I'm seeing in plans, at least looking, this was pre-June meeting, so maybe some of that's changed. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look into it before this meeting. Where it's located, 135, it's our, it's major thoroughfare forest entrance, welcome to our neighborhood, and there's this building's already being put in with low quality equipment materials. So I'm opposed based on what I've seen so far. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brad Gibson. I live at 3124 Amber Way. The back of our property lines almost directly with the storm drain towards the bottom of the drawing there. You can see the little dot there, the bottom left corner to the tree line. So all along that storm drain, that's where our property line exists. One of the main concerns I have about this, and I'm in opposition, primarily because there's no mention or an understanding from my perspective of what the lighting situation is going to be like. We have 3 bedroom windows that line up against the back of the house. And we already see a lot of lights in distance. So my main concern is around the light pollution that we might see. I hope that we don't have lights that are on 24 hours. It would probably illuminate our backyard and also illuminate the back of our house. So hopefully, we can figure out some kind of way for that not to happen. Again, my main concern, beyond just the visual and design aspects that Will mentioned, I'm concerned for those as well, but primarily around the light pollution that we might see from any kind of light poles or 24-hour lights that would really just illuminate our property 24 hours a day, and I don't think that should be allowed now. Right? Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, my name is Leo Yee. I'm at 3149 Amber Way, and I live across the street from the last 3 speakers. I don't know if they've been in the house that long, but I know that at least a couple houses along there have flooded at least 2 or 3 times. That flood up against the back of it. So I'm concerned about the Allen calculations of drainage, and I don't know how this developer has used both those calculations for if they come up with new calculations. So I think that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
My name is Jack Sadler, Sandler. Live at 5946 Claybrook Drive. I live 3 additions down. So those storage units will not be in my backyard. What's going to happen is they're going to evaluate the property in Somerset, and it's going to hit the next addition and the next addition. And the properties range in Somerset from about $500,000 on down to Saddle Club, millions of dollars. I know the house I'm living in is $1.1 million. And eventually it will, like a disease, it will get down there. I can just imagine those units will be like barracks, will be covered with corrugated steel with a chain link fence around it. I'm just speculating, and floodlights around it. We've had, since I've lived out here, we've had numerous accidents at Smoky Road and 135. We finally got the stoplight in there. And if anyone's traveled at 135 between 4 and 6, they know it's bumper to bumper traffic. And if you put a storage unit there with access at 135, with trucks going in there to store some of their goods, we're going to have deaths, not just accidents. I won't take up any more of your time.
Thank you, sir.
And, consider that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Sargent. I live at 4025 Lockview Court. And I echo the comments of my neighbors and fellow citizens. As you can see, there's a nice group here tonight. We're here as the citizens of Bargersville, asking you all as our elected town officials to hear us. And we have voiced very important concerns that I think hit all aspects of things that should be considered. We're all opposed to this. We've talked about property values, traffic, sewage, you're in a very unique position to control the gateway to Bargersville. And you don't get this chance more than once. We're asking you to preserve the heritage of this great town that's developing at record speed. And if it's not done correctly, just as my neighbor indicated, it's just going to keep snowballing. I moved intentionally from Greenwood because I saw the wonderful opportunity that Bargersville would present to develop properly. And so we're asking you tonight to please deny this request. And let's put something nice looking there on 135 that welcomes everybody into this town.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak and I didn't get sworn in.
Oh, sorry. You gotta raise your right arm. Your right hand, you look pretty mischievous to me. Rennie, do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'll give you a little history. My property is to the south of this. I've been there 70 years. When I moved there,
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Richard Sanders, 5510 North State Road 135.
Thanks, sorry.
When I moved there, where they're going to put these units, they didn't even farm that field because it was so wet. And it's going to be difficult to drain. I don't know, I understand the engineers and all that, but I'm telling you, it's going to be difficult to drain. I don't want to see the units go in. I hate to see, think about a move, looking north and see them. And at my age, I don't have long to go. I'll be 93 next month. And I'd like to live my life peacefully on the property the rest of it. Whatever time I've got left, it's not much. But I sure hate to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure. Almost.
I'm Deborah Yee. I'm at 3149 Amber Way. And we've been there since 2004, very beginning of Somerset community. I'm just going to reiterate everything that everyone else has said here, okay? But mostly, my front porch, I can sit on my front porch and look at this thing from my front porch. And I'm talking, I don't want to look straight out at chain link fences and overly lit areas any more than anybody else does. Okay? If there is any way that, I mean, if you guys are determined to have this thing put in here, which it's starting to look like nobody really wants, to be perfectly honest. If there is any way, what shape or form that you can get appropriate landscaping and or walls or something, anything, because there is a grove of trees on the west, yes, that they're planning on probably keeping, okay? But just past that is a huge gap of nothing there. And that's what my front porch stares out onto. And that gets built if there's not the appropriate amount of landscaping put in there. And I mean like evergreen landscaping, not deciduous trees that you know, shed in the wintertime and you still have to look at it 6 months out of the year, okay? Please consider that. You know, please consider requiring that because that's just going to be a massive eyesore. It's either that or the homeowners association is going to have to take that on, and I don't think that they can. And then also what my husband said, that area in there, those homes along behind that, in the same spot I'm talking about, have flooded at least twice, maybe 3 times that I know of. And so there are definite drainage issues, and we've talked about it for years. just about every meeting would come up here, anything that's been developed around here. And even when it was handled through Johnson County, we have brought that up, okay? And I want you to please, please, please consider that when you're looking at the plan. And then thirdly, the lighting, it's just, that's a huge red flag for me. It's just the amount of light. And I know you could probably put a gas station in there and it'll be 10 times worse. So if you are going to do this, if you are really determined to do this, please keep us all in mind. Would you like to live and look at that? And if you wouldn't, then please get the appropriate lighting and landscaping put in there and drainage. So, sorry, and I know I reiterated a lot of stuff that people have already brought up, but I just want you to understand how important that is to us. So, thank you.
Just kind of want to reiterate that we have on our list, traffic at entrance, we have lighting, we have drainage, we have visual buffer. So again, appreciate to try to avoid as much as the repetitiveness.
Yeah, fantastic. My name's Daniel Falks. I live at 3199 Tecumseh Way in Somerset neighborhood. Dwight eloquently spoke earlier. I want to bring up something that hasn't been addressed, and that's crime. If you even turn on the news, even as of last night, at Greenwood Park Mall, you see that crime is everywhere these days. Okay? One of the things that we like in small town USA is the fact that we don't have the crime of larger cities. I just quickly did a Google search of what crime associated with storage facilities are. And actually just last year, the Greenwood police were searching for burglaries. As the police said, and I quote this from WTHR, they broke into 35 storage units around the southern Indianapolis area. So that's a major concern of mine. Is the crime. Now, I know this particular facility doesn't have, or at least I don't think they have, based on the drawings, any area for like RV camper storage. I know that is a major criminal activity, because I used to be in the RV and camper business many moons ago. So that's definitely one thing. Have we looked at that? Obviously we don't want crime in Bargersville, but like I said, you can do a quick Google search of crime in storage facilities, and it's just literally article after article of how these things invite criminal activity to the area. So I think that in addition to everything people have brought forward today, that crime is one thing that needs to be considered as well.
No one else? That closes the public hearing for Daca DEV 0000357 2022 Sutton Farms self-storage development plan. There was a lot of comments made. Does anybody have any comments amongst the commission before petitioner, we give the petitioner the opportunity to address some of these items?
Just an observation. First of all, thank you for those of you who came, and especially those of you that had the courage to stand up at this microphone. It can be very intimidating. Before serving on the planning commission, sat on that side of this table and have been a speaker, and I know how intimidating it can be. So first of all, thank you. Secondly, the issues of lighting and drainage, traffic, and so on are well received and understood. One of the things that I heard from more than one community members tonight that rings true to me is this is the major entryway into the Bargersville area. And you may or may not have had opportunities to look at our Vision 2040 common plan, something I was involved in, the whole planning commission was involved in. There's a lot of discussion about the major entry points into our community. So it's actually very affirming to know that it wasn't just those of us that were on the steering committee for the planning commission that recognize how important those improvements are. So, again, just an observation, it is encouraging to know that members of our community recognize how important that is and a gateway to our town.
I just want to confirm that, legal at this point forward, any motion can be made, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? At this point forward, any motion can be made.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion concerning development 357, 2022, Sutton Farm self-storage to deny your request.
We have a motion made to deny, request for the development plan.
It's second.
We have a first and a second. Does any of the commission members have any questions or comments?
Just a point of order, do we need to specify the issues in the motion for the reason for denial, or is it sufficient just to make a motion?
We'll just make a motion to deny.
So we have a first and second. Any other questions about the motion? Voting to beginning on my right, audibly, please.
James Rommel, aye.
Vivian Moore, aye.
Jeff Sigmeier, aye.
Mark Beadle, aye. Eric Carl, aye.
Rowena Umbarger, aye.
6-0 to deny the development plan. Next item. I guess as just a matter, just to address the people that came, if anybody has any other questions or anything like that, after the meeting, Joe's here to answer those questions. We are not elected, believe it or not, we volunteer for this. The town council, which we do have 2 representatives on this commission from the town council, is our elected officials for the town of Bargersville. So they're busy at work much more frequently than we are, but anyway, just so you guys know. So thank you very much for everybody for coming.
Yes, sir. I got who one of the elected officials are. Okay. I just.
We said you're going to bring the table.
I was trying to blame it all on you.
Don't come to my house. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to our new business items. First of which is for docket plat -371-2022, Howard Primary Plat Findings of Fact. These start on page 25 of your packets and are an item for your approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact for plat 000371-2022.
A second? A second. First and a second, any questions about the motion? All in favor, beginning to my right, audibly, please.
James Rommel, aye.
Vivian Moore, aye.
Jeff Sigmeier, aye.
Beadle, aye. Eric Carl, aye.
Rowena Umbarger, aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next item on the agenda is docket plat -376-2022, Howard Secondary Plat. The petitioner is requesting secondary plat approval to develop a 3-lot residential subdivision. Subject property is located at 6865 West Whiteland Road. Property is zonable residential. Petitioner is Shelby Howard III. Owners are Shelby D. Howard III and Howard Management Property LLC. So as mentioned, this is a 3-lot residential subdivision off Whiteland Road. A block A proposed, and then a lot 1 and lot 2 for future single-family development. So this primary plat was approved by the Planning Commission last month. This secondary plat is here to finalize this out. For the SCO, factors of secondary approval are conformance with the primary plat and submittal of any financial guarantees in accordance with the ordinance. Secondary plat is in conformance with the primary plat, and no financial guarantees are required based on the proposed improvements. With this in mind, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the secondary plat with the conditions that all tech comments are addressed, and final approval of the stormwater utility board is granted. Petitioner is here tonight to answer any questions. This is not a public hearing.
Members of the commission have any questions regarding this item? If not, we will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve 376/2022 Howard secondary plat. With specifying the conditions with the tech comments.
First and second, first and second, motion included addressing the items in the report, staff report. Any other questions? If not, all in favor, starting beginning to my right, audibly, please.
James Ramel, aye.
Jeff Sigmark, Art Beetle, aye.
Eric Arnold, aye.
For one of Barker, I'm going to abstain. My family has property.
5 with 1 abstention. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. See you guys.
All right. So we have a couple of discussion items for you tonight. First of which is the Planning Commission Rules of Procedure update. So we sent this out an initial draft to y'all at the end of last week, and we're not expecting the commission to take a vote tonight or anything like that. We just wanted to have the conversation about it. These rules were last reviewed in 2019, and we wanted to get them consistent with current practice, with town process, and also the upcoming unified development ordinance to try and get everything where there's no conflicts in that procedural. Some discussion points, one of which we mentioned in last week about 15-day newspaper notice. So currently the rules and have for 6 or more years, as long as I've been around, have required that public hearings before the commission advertise in the Daily Journal a minimum of 15 days before the public hearing. And that was due to petitioners stating that there was an issue with getting all of that notice documentation back from the journal in time to verify that the public notice had been done properly. So that timeline was bumped up from the statutory 10-day minimum to 15 days. And this was just newspaper, not a mailing notice. Mailing notice still has been statutory minimum of 10 days. So Daily Journals had changed their processes. Things are electronic, a lot faster now, and we haven't reported that, or we haven't heard those reports on similar kind of struggles. So we just wanted to bring that up as we're looking at these rules. Is this something that the commission wanted to look at? Again, statutory minimum is 10 days, which is consistent with our rules for the mail notices, but the 15-day newspaper goes a little bit stricter than that statutory minimum.
Do the other committees, boards, councils, et cetera, did they also go to the 15-day?
The Board of Zoning Appeals does. Town Council,
I've not known how.
yeah.
We're not that long.
Yeah, then the follow-up question is gonna be, maybe as the city is member of the BZA, maybe I will also be having similar discussion points on their rules of procedure at some point too. But, okay, so if those are the only 2, maybe 3, then might set follow-up question of, are they also changing to 10 goes without warrant? Because I know the BZA, we haven't discussed it yet, so.
The recommendation for changes for BZA will be based off of your decision.
I would keep it uniform.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. That was my question.
Cause, you know,
That was gonna be my question, is are they, if one's doing it, probably all should do it, and vice versa.
it's gonna be on our recommendation, I think, correct?
Oh, BZA sets their own rules.
Okay. Because they are.
Our recommendation would be to keep it simple. I think Joe's probably explained 15, where that 15 days came in. You know, your options, it's up to your right, you know, 15 days. If you want to advance mailing to 15 days, you can do that. We'd like to keep it consistent, either 15, 15
I've heard with, my opinion, I've heard with 5 to 10 days, but that's where I was going with my question is, are the other ones also going in line with that? It kind of sounds like we're the front runner and what we decide will end up dictating what everybody else does.
I have a comment on when a petition such as what we addressed earlier in this meeting comes before the community, I'm not saying before the commission, but the community, especially if it has very high impact on the community, such as the one that we just addressed. 10 days notice in the paper and mailing is a very narrow window for people to be well prepared to mount a remonstrance, to be able to get together as a community and neighbors. I personally am not in favor of reducing it from 15 to 10. In deference to the amount of time that it takes to actually prepare to do what these folks did.
It's a fair point because you can post it in the paper, but to be honest, who actually gets the paper these days? And so those that are really impacted are required by the mail, which isn't getting faster, it's only getting slower.
The mail doesn't get to them.
Correct. Now you're talking
They
6
have to be
days.
certified that it was mailed.
We went to the certificate of mailing, because we all know that good news doesn't come certified mail, and people don't tend to pick up their certified mail.
And we're at, what, notice day
10 days on mailing.
on mailing.
Staff would just like to see that, I don't think we prefer 15 or 10 or 20. We just like that to be the same newspaper mailing. If it's 15,
For the daily journal.
That's how it is right now.
So the mailing is 10.
if we want to push the mailing to
We've definitely
15,
experienced that.
that's fine.
I will tell you, it was.
Just being consistent is a little easier on staff.
And for the petitioner as well.
Correct. It was very difficult to be prepared.
I think I'd do a 15 on both of them. Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one question about the rules. Yeah. So we're doing too, right?
Yep, this is a discussion time.
On the voting, section 2, page 4, I don't think we're following this, so maybe instead of shall, maybe may, that says item 3, under C, conflict of interest, as a member determines that he or she has or is determined by the commission to have a conflict of interest shall remove himself or herself from the commission proceedings.
Yeah, I
And
saw
leave
that
the
as
chamber.
we were doing that review. That's my fault. I haven't enforced that lately.
Oh, so she technically should have left the.
Is there,
30-second
I don't think she needs, and she can if she's comfortable, but I'm not concerned. You think from a public perspective, from a public's perspective, as somebody who has a conflict of interest and they stay up here, it could be construed as,
Yeah, I mean, it's a
they're having presence.
Yeah, exactly. Is the presence a factor? It depends on the type of conflict. If it's-
Right. Obviously, like when I had my own thing about, in front of everybody, I laughed.
Yeah.
But if it's just because of I don't know, I'm just asking.
Property is located.
I'd like to explore this further because I actually have notes on this very issue myself.
If you were the petitioner or part of the petitioner, that's different. I think you need to leave the room.
Yeah.
Or you're not presenting as that, and that does happen when you property. So.
But like the last one, where we
No,
talked
I
about the
don't-
30 seconds for a
contiguous
secondary plat, I don't know
property,
if that's necessary.
Yeah, I don't agree.
It says that it shall, so I guess we're saying.
I think
You want to
so
change
we're
it to
not.
May?
Well,
I'm not good.
I think the state defines conflict of interest as yourself or immediate family member has a financial interest.
That is the point that I want to make. Statute, and I looked it up and I read the statute, is only related to a financial interest.
We are stricter.
So the entire section C here is expanding upon what we are calling a conflict of interest by absorbing what is in Article 7, which is actually, Article 7 is about defining who has to get mail notices. So this 7 Section 3, paragraph B is interested parties were defined as 300 foot or 600 foot or second property owner. That has to do with giving public notice. And this is referring to public notice notice requirements and calling those conflicts of interest, and I think that's wrong. You look at very large tracts of agricultural land out in our district, the second property overrule could potentially, like a very large property owners, could be 3/4 of a mile away, and you're saying that's a conflict of interest because of being too close? I think that's not right. Statute strictly is identifying conflict of interest in terms of a financial or pecuniary interest. I have argued both on the planning commission and in the BZA that there are times, Ro, that you have abstained for a potential conflict of interest that I don't think by definition is a conflict of interest.
But I agree with Alan, though. I always think we should err on the more strict side.
I disagree with that.
Well, I think we also are stricter in that, in addition to financial, we have a subjective, if you believe that you cannot be unbiased, you should have, so I think that needs to stay.
I agree.
But whether or not the person's receiving notice also needs to be included in the definition of conflict, that can be a discussion. I mean, I think it goes to the bias. If that person is a neighbor and doesn't want the thing there and can't be unbiased, then it's on them to recuse themselves.
So that was just a point that I wanted to make. If a person receives notice, okay, in the example I gave of a very large, ag section, you guys are going to potentially catch that, right? Even if it's 3/4 of a mile away, that person is you're gonna scoop it up in the interested parties section. It's not gonna be the 300 foot or the 600 foot. It's gonna be the second property, right?
Second property. We really rely on you all to disclose that, because it's not often in a name. It's in a trust. It's in a group.
Yeah, fair enough. So I mean, this is not a mountain I'm willing to die on, but that's something that has bothered me the whole time I've served on this commission, when members have abstained for what I thought was not. And, asking them to make a statement publicly that I believe that, I can, what is the word here, be unbiased and impartial. Be sufficient.
My only point was, if somebody subjectively believes they have a conflict of interest and they say that and don't vote, we're not asking them to leave the room procedurally. In here it says we are.
Yeah.
But that was my only, I'd say.
So do we need to change that?
I just think it's.
We either need to change it or start doing it.
I don't want to start doing it.
I don't.
I think the door wouldn't even close. The last one, you can turn around and come right back in.
Just sit quietly in the corner.
Mark, you do distinguish between if you in fact are the petitioner versus.
Oh, that's a big, I don't think this is just on voting. Yeah.
I really don't think on that situation you need to leave the room.
I agree.
I am going to leave the room. I
myself.
myself.
I don't think I saw anything else. That was just one thing I just was reading through. No, we're not doing what we're supposed to. And I was always told if it says shall, we're supposed to.
I think legal counsel needs to be punished for that.
So it sounds like the commission is interested in changing that there. Even if there's a conflict of interest on the commission, that they don't necessarily have to leave the room.
Yeah, unless there's a petitioner, unless the commission and the petitioner have any relationship at all. Like if my son's the petitioner or the immediate family or whatever.
We can wordsmith that.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna go that 10, we're gonna keep it at 15 and move the other
15
15
for
to
that.
10. I think that's a good point based on people's schedules and preparing.
Well, like I said, we all know that postal service isn't getting faster with the
Yeah.
rates, they're all getting slower, so.
Yeah, technically, our mailing, 10-day mailing deadlines, we mail Friday. This outgoing mail on Friday probably doesn't get delivered till the next Monday, Tuesday. So,
Now you're talking less than a week, and
if they happen to be out of town the early part of, they just don't.
About 6 to 7 days. Or 5 to 6 days, depending on what time you get home.
Right.
On page 6, what would this be? This would be Article 4, public hearings, the paragraph D about time guidelines, which we've actually experienced this evening. The limitation, the way paragraph D is written does not actually grant discretion to the presiding officer. Okay, but you do touch on it then, down at the very bottom of page 6. I'm in the marked up version, by the way, when I get page numbers. Authority of presiding officer. The presiding officer shall have the authority to prohibit repetitious, irrelevant, or immaterial testimony. And here's the point, shall have the authority to limit the length of testimony. I want to go that they should say limit or extend. That gives the discretion then. So limit or extend the length of testimony by each speaker deemed appropriate to a fair public hearing. Because otherwise, as it sits, it doesn't really give him that discretion.
Then you're giving people something to point to if they are not given an extended.
But it also says he has the authority to limit too, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying take out limit.
He can cut you off or extend you however whatever move Mark's in.
Because
the president.
Because
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the
Our
presiding
grand
officer.
our grand poobah can,
Because ultimately the goal is a fair public hearing, right? And if there had been 50 people here.
There was a lot of petition tonight, but obviously.
Yeah. But you spoke to it. The thing is, you spoke to it, and subsequently, people backed away from saying the same thing. So I thought it was handled well.
Yeah.
So just, it's a thought. If we want a presiding officer to have that discretion, which was actually exercised tonight, put in proceedings.
Just a side thing too, no, on the school board when they spoke, people from the same address. There's only one person per address. I caught that tonight, but is it 2 or I thought it was only 1 per
There were
address?
2 people.
No, there were
Oh, I
two
know.
couples.
Yeah, but
There
there were 2
couples.
couples.
Yeah.
So our rules give people the.
We don't address it.
At all, okay. I remember it was somewhere, it must be school board. Anyway.
We also, we take a look at some other language as we come across that.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's
I don't speak for my wife.
I do have a copy of the rules and regulations that I bring every night, so we have to have them in here.
Okay, so with it aside, Ellen, you were kind of.
Let me think about it.
That's a plain answer right
Shall
there.
have the authority to limit or extend is what I'm advocating.
Because I think if you give them the authority to limit too, then nobody can come back and say, well, you didn't give me extended time. Well, no, I have the authority to also limit your time. You want to keep what you got, so,
Not gonna have created little word.
My amateur legal
word
name.
choices, but I'll show you that afterwards.
Okay. Monthly Development Department project update.
What if I got more here?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're limiting your time, Jeff.
I have learned that if I don't press Jeff's I say that with love.
I couldn't resist that.
Actually, I think most of it's just where you've got duplicate language, so. Oh, I was just gonna ask the section on recording, it's like on page 13. I know that we record the meetings. It says that once the minutes are approved, recording shall be destroyed. You're suggesting language about actually posting, because I know I sometimes can't listen to council meetings, but I hop on after the fact and watch them. Is there a reason why you would want to be destroying the recordings after minutes are? Because there is a vast difference between the discussion that takes place in a meeting and what shows up in minutes.
I think that was written in the days of the small cassette tapes, or the cassette tapes that you had to have the special playback to listen to. It's a kind of a relic where you needed to reuse those tapes.
But I think you can go on and look at past or not. You can.
What you're saying is we shouldn't destroy them, right? I'm saying we shouldn't destroy them.
Our recording is now archived on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, you can see them. If we need language to say not to destroy them, I'm in agreement.
But the
Yeah.
new language is good, because the new language talks about your YouTube channel, that's good. I would make it consistent with the first sentence.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
First paragraph.
If we don't technically destroy them.
Yeah, mostly that was kept in the event the town would, for practice that continually, had recorded, the audio of meetings before we did live streams. And then after a period of time that those recordings, once the minutes were adopted or destroyed.
And it may be worth keeping in just in
That's
the
right.
instance that
That's why it's kept.
we don't have data on a given night, we need to voice record it.
If not, if YouTube goes down or our streaming platform goes down and we can't.
Metronet is an outage in the area for the.
So that's why the language was kept in there and then we added language about the live streaming. Because those will not be destroyed by the town or privated or anything.
Yeah, once it's on YouTube, you can't.
Once it's out there.
Once it's out there, now I got everything. Thanks, sir.
And this may not have a lot, there was one more thing that staff wanted to just ask about for the rules, redocketing. Right now, for withdrawals versus denials. If a petition would be withdrawn, there are two different kinds: with prejudice, which is more than 14 days before the hearing. That can just be, that's not a PC decision, the petition's withdrawn, and there is no waiting period on that. To refile. If it is within that 14 days of the public hearing, it's at the commission's discretion to grant that withdrawal request or deny it. If it would be granted, then they can't come back on docket for public hearing within 3 months of that decision unless the commission would vote to redocket. And there's provisions in the rules for that. A denial, straight up denial, a docket can be on the docket within 12 months of the decision.
Unless there's substantial changes, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean.
So, what we had first on our agenda tonight, with the denial, is that now a 12-month?
No, the denial, that's only for plats and rezones.
So not the development.
Correct.
Is there a wait period on development?
Not in the rules, and
Not knowing.
and keeping in mind with the upcoming Unified Development Code, the changes in our reviews and what comes to planning commission regularly.
If a development plan is going to be denied, it will be at this board, as long as I'm in my seat. We will not administratively deny a petition before it comes to you.
It'll get escalated.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's next?
That's all the staff wanted to really specifically point out with those rules. We'll come with y'all next month with draft incorporating our discussions
But I think your point of question of the 12 months, I think we're all okay with keeping that.
Right.
Sounds like.
I just wish it was in there for development.
Yeah.
So we can,
I think development plan by nature, if it's denied, there's going to have to be substantial changes to
So we
refile.
come back anyway.
It's kind of by the nature, if you have your barn permit denied, you're going to have to make some changes before you reapply.
Okay, so but the substantial changes are on the, do they have to refile?
Yes.
Or are they just asking to redocket?
They would have to refile. Following the calendar meeting dates.
That's what I was hoping.
yeah, if you guys notice anything before next month's meeting, you have questions or whatever, feel free to reach out to me and Joe. Yeah, we'll look into it then, and we'll have a draft with the incorporating all these discussion points for y'all next month to consider. So otherwise, that's just the monthly development project update.
I wanted to comment on that really quick so the commission members knew. We talked in the last redevelopment commission meeting, which was just last Thursday, that the commission, redevelopment commission members will get a copy of this monthly development department project update, just so they can get a better feel for what's going on. Sometimes I forgot I see that and the other.
I've got it on my calendar now, so.
Good, yeah, it's public anyway, so we just wanted to get it to the redevelopment commission in their packets. So that's happening.
All right. Staff doesn't have anything else, right?
I doubt my wife is watching. So it is our 24th anniversary.
Oh,
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
That's
special
wrap up
meeting.
Yeah.
Mark,
You really don't gotta make her feel special. Wednesday morning.
Wednesday at
7:30.
7:30 a.m.
AM.
Social media. Okay, is that it?
That's all that staff has.